Pure blood nonsense. Culture, tribe, and the quest for power. What's up, folks? This is Justin Garcia, a.k.a. Master Chim, and I'm here with the pure white blood, white boy Patrick Kelly.
What's up?
And welcome to another episode of The Pressure Project. ThePressureProject.com is our website. Info at ThePressureProject.com is our contact email. Keep those emails coming, brothers. YouTube.com/The Pressure Project is our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel. We are in competition with many other YouTube channels to garner the most power and following.
Yes.
And can't do that on our own. I know that there's other podcasts out there that have a YouTube channel and they're buying the subscriptions.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You just know it because you look at the views.
Yeah.
And something doesn't quite add up.
Makes sense.
Right. So
Yeah.
For those of you that are listening on iTunes or Stitcher or some other audio version of the podcast, you are the bulk of the listeners. And we appreciate you guys spending time. Those of you that are watching the video requires a little bit more of an investment, obviously, sitting down and watching our two ugly mugs talk about powerful topics. But we're certainly glad you could join us.
Yes.
Today we're talking about those people who would champion the cause of keeping blood pure. Most of the time, it's the extremists who champion this type of mindset and practice. It could be from the Nazis and the pure Aryan bloodline, which there is some debate about where exactly Aryans are from.
Yeah.
All the way down to the Farrakhan's who believe in black separatism and it's sort of like you could only be a certain part of a group if you have pure blood.
True.
Well, I have an issue with that. In a Harry Potter novel, I'd be a mudblood.
I was just going to say Harry Potter.
That was the 50 Cent.
Yeah.
Fun of
50 Cent, Floyd Mayweather.
You could read a page out of Harry Potter book.
That's funny.
But
yeah, I was thinking Harry Potter too, Mudblood.
Mudblood. So I'm a mudblood.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about it. I guess we could skip the entire episode and just start with the final point. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
I will do what I want. I will run the customs and traditions I see fit.
True.
My
Very
tribe is going to be powerful, and nobody's going to have any say in the matter. If you're talking about a master morality, you're not talking about a perspective that sort of kowtows to the pressures of outsiders or even lesser beings. And what you get a lot is you get these people who really, really, really sort of cling to this often false notion that they are of a pure blood from either a country, a region, a people. And in the year 2015, it's difficult. It's difficult to maintain. It's oftentimes because of just the natural migration of people around the planet. It's tough to pull off.
It is.
Now, one of the things that's, I think, unique in my perspective is that, I am a product of, what's considered an interracial marriage. And I'm not a proponent of interracial marriage. Do I think it should be outlawed? No. Do I think it should be, mocked and made fun of? Absolutely not. But it's, if you have the choice of marrying somebody, from your people, your cultures, your traditions, and marrying somebody from a completely other culture and tradition, I'm always going to opt for staying within the realm of what's comfortable, what's sort of known, what's familiar. And it's a way that, these bonds can be strengthened. Now, I do feel, and I don't know if this is a cop-out, I guess I'd have to revisit it. Now that I'm saying it out loud, I want to be sincere in saying this, but I do think that there are cultures and traditions that are more compatible with each other than others.
That's true.
Yeah. And, I think if you're a Muslim from Egypt and you want to marry a Muslim from, Nigeria, I think it'll work. If you are and I think it'll work. I think anybody can make it work. It's not my, it's probably not the best phrase. Yeah. I think it's,
at least they're not related.
Right. I think it's the level of compatibility between the cultures and traditions tend to be a little bit more congruent, with some groups as opposed to others.
Well, yeah, if you get the not without my daughter situation,
Right.
where they go back to the homeland and it's like, fucking, you got to wear this hat now. You got to cover your face. And
Right.
the American woman's like, what the hell's going on? Then she can't leave. All her rights are taken away.
Right. So,
Not very
and that was based on a true story, right?
Yeah.
All right. So that was an American woman had married a Muslim.
Correct.
He brought the child back to his country.
Yeah.
And she had to go there and basically play it off like she was going to mind her role as a Muslim woman, even though she was an American woman.
Correct.
And eventually I think she escaped, right? With
Yeah.
the kid.
Yeah, she did.
And so, there are religions that I would say are very all-encompassing and sort of transcend race and ethnicity and nationality, and therein lies a certain compatibility that may not otherwise be there. If you're a Muslim, I would argue it doesn't matter where the hell you're from. If you believe in all that nonsense, then
You're not supposed to marry any unclean woman.
right.
So how would that even happen?
Right, you're supposed to marry a Muslim. So
Yeah.
an inherent compatibility.
Yeah.
Muhammad wasn't stupid. He was a lot of things, but he wasn't stupid.
No.
So when you talk about, like what happens now, you have black men, white women, you have white men, black women, you have Hispanics. My father is Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
He married my Irish Italian mother. There are some groups that don't have a connection to their culture, don't have a connection to their traditions. You'll find that the average, African American experience, aka black experience in this country, is not one of a long established culture and tradition.
True.
Oftentimes, they're left to reverse engineering what exactly their legacy may have been before themselves. But you also have other groups, ethnic groups, that do have connections to their countries of origins, to the traditions and cultures that are still practiced in their homes. I had quite a few friends growing up, Italian friends who were fluent in Italian. Their parents spoke Italian. Their grandparents still lived there, and they all spoke Italian. Yeah. And that's normal. One of the things that I did not appreciate growing up, in my household was that I never learned another language.
Interesting.
It wasn't something that was really paid attention to. It wasn't really thought of. It was an afterthought. My father always worked. My mother only spoke English. So, my father, whose first language is Spanish, being born and raised in Puerto Rico, it wasn't something that he necessarily could have practically taken on. I think about my kids now, all of my kids are fluent in Portuguese. My wife only speaks to them in Portuguese, being, she's from Brazil. And it's something that connects them to, to lines of culture and family that go beyond, the here and now. And I think that's important, obviously.
Very important.
So we're going to talk about a couple of different concepts, a couple of different things concerning the Viking culture. Now, why the Viking culture? Well, I'm an atheist. I don't, and as are you.
Correct.
It's something we've spoken about many times.
Yeah.
I don't believe in a theistic sort of metaphysical entity. I don't have, any sort of, opinion or belief in an afterlife or I don't think there's a story that has a personality behind it that explains everything. But one of the things I will say is that, a few years back, I was introduced to the Viking culture, and the cultures and traditions of the Viking Age, in the Scandinavian countries. And it's something that just fit, and I really don't know a better way to put it.
That's a good way to put it.
It just felt like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I've had many different people try to explain in their own worldview, why that is, why that was so comfortable for me, why that was so sort of appropriate, seemingly appropriate.
Yeah.
But my personal philosophy, I just found was very compatible with a lot of the customs and traditions of that era. And I'm not Norse.
What? No?
I'm not
Not even a little bit?
a Swede, a Dane.
Yeah.
I'm not Icelandic.
Finn.
Finn. What are the other ones? I think that's all of them.
Yeah, hit
right?
them all.
Norse.
Yeah.
So you are Norwegian.
Norwegian wood.
So, my makeup,
Yeah.
the makeup of my DNA. I'm about 80% European blood. And that's, according to 23andMe,
Yeah.
that's I think 20% Northern European, the rest, Southern European, Iberian Peninsula,
Yeah.
Italy. So, I have some European blood. I'm mostly European blood, but I don't necessarily want to sort of say that validates any of these other, these findings.
Yeah.
Right. I will say that my personal belief system, the way that my family is set up, the way that my tribe of friends and community is set up, I found to be completely congruent with so many of the powerful concepts of the Viking Age.
Yeah.
That it's something that I look to and use as a sort of reference and a guide to determine what works, what doesn't work.
That makes sense.
If I want to sort of have a group of men and women in my tribe who embody, the customs and traditions, and we'll get to it a little bit later, but of the Viking era, of these Viking communities, well, who better to research than the actual Viking communities? But, I'll still find that I've had this happen before. I had to tell somebody off on Facebook the other day.
No way.
It's true. It's
Oh,
true.
wow.
Where they accused me of being a Hispanic who was out of touch with anything, I don't know, real.
With his Hispanicity.
Yeah.
That's a made up word.
I know. So, it was just, they were trying to push my buttons. They were trying to get,
of course.
and it's like, you're letters on a computer screen. I don't know who you are, but it's a common thing. It actually, gave me the inspiration for this episode. And it's like, you know what? There are going to be people out there who are going to tell me, well, you're not from Sweden. You're not Scandinavian.
Yeah.
So leave our Viking culture alone.
Do they have Hispanic Uncle Tom? Is like Uncle Tino?
Tino wouldn't necessarily be Hispanic. That's actually racist for you to think that.
What would be a good one?
I don't know. I'm not even going to play that game with you. I'm not going to play Let's Be Racist Against Me.
I wasn't doing that.
Right? Then you didn't even realize you were.
Yes.
All right, so how about this? All right, how about that? What can you spell with that? Want to buy a vowel? So
that's funny.
So if you're listening to audio, you missed that.
You missed that. It was funny.
Anywho,
back on topic.
Back on topic. Distraction boy. So if I have these people who are saying, Viking culture isn't your culture. You're not, Scandinavian. You're not. People aren't from the Viking. And then it's like, all right, so what?
Yeah.
So what? So what's you don't have this in your blood. And it's like, all right, well, you know what? I wanted to take this opportunity to explore some of those countries, to explore the home, the natural lands of the Vikings. And in 2015, see how those of pure Scandinavian blood are preserving their Viking heritage, and the strength of the bygone era.
Yes.
Right. So we decided to take these Scandinavian countries and just get a couple of bullet points on what's going on with them nowadays. Right.
Yeah.
And
There's a couple good ones in here.
And before we get to it, I want to, because I have this whole thing that I just wrote and didn't read. I want to talk about that's right. I have this whole paragraph here.
Remix.
Right. So the people, nice little segue.
Yeah.
The people who are from these countries, who have criticized anybody who's not from these countries, embracing, as an example, the Viking culture.
Yeah.
They oftentimes cite certain positions of certain anthropologists, scientists, sociologists, and there are concepts out there that they cling to as a sort of defense for their positions, right? And I just want to read something here. There's a concept called racial purity, and it was developed by a gentleman named Arthur de Guébenot. And de Guébenot argued that race created culture, and that impure race mixing leads to chaos. Racial hygiene was historically tied to traditional notions of public health, but usually with an enhanced emphasis on heredity. Francis Galton in 1869 began a statistical science of heredity, which would encourage voluntary care for selecting partners, and in 1883 introduced the term eugenics for this subject. Now,
Cool.
You may have heard of eugenics before, and it's something that was sort of co-opted and I would say demonized, bastardized even by the Nazi Party, and it was used to validate, their treatment of people who are not like them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the Holocaust, or that whole era of time and what may or may not have happened, but I will say that the concept of eugenics was one that I would say is well-intentioned. It maybe has not found a sort of positive, palpable application yet.
Not yet.
But it's certainly something that makes sense. The notion of eugenics being, let's discourage dumb people from having children. Let's encourage smart people from having children. Let's discourage sick people from having children. Let's encourage strong, healthy people to have children.
Sure.
And on the surface, it really doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. When you start saying, this shade of skin should be, cut off at this, link of the chain, and this should be encouraged, and you don't take into account the sort of meritocracy of power and strength in people. Now you sort of stray into the subjective, notion of just because he's like me, he's better.
Yeah.
Which may or may not be true. So culture, and this is a definition that I got off of dictionary.com, and one I actually like.
Yeah, it's a good one.
See, because I don't believe that race creates culture.
Yeah, no.
I don't at all. I think what you do creates culture, and I think what you do really depends on many different things. One of them being geography. One of them being technology, wartime, peacetime. And there are a lot of factors that create the habits of culture. But culture, defined by dictionary.com, is the sum total of ways living built up by a group of human beings and transmitted from one generation to another. So
that's a good definition.
Ways of living.
Yeah.
Built up by a group, transmitted from one generation to another. So ways of living is not inherently dependent on race. It's not inherently dependent on genetics. If you are, let's say, super extreme example, just to illustrate my point, if you are a group of Africans who the average height is 6'3", I don't even know if they exist, but just go with it.
Sounds good.
If you are a group of Africans who are 6'3", and you move into a land where all of the fruits on the trees are within your reach.
Yeah.
And you are displaced by another group who the average size is 5'3", and they need tools and they need resources and means by which to access this sustenance. Well, that inherent difference in the people is going to have an effect on their culture. It's going to have an effect on what they do in that region to succeed, to survive. So just as an extreme hypothetical example, so I do acknowledge that, sure, race may or may not play a role, but it's not the end all be all. I would say that, what those habits are and what those sort of ways of living, as the definition says, really make up what winds up being culture, right? So let's get to these Viking countries, these alleged Viking
allegedly
countries. What I would argue, these former Viking countries. Sweden. So what's going on with Sweden? Sweden. The best thing nowadays about Sweden is probably Swedish fish.
Swedish fish. I love Swedish fish. Okay.
They get caught in my teeth a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's like a thing.
Do you have Swedish toothpicks come with them?
No, I use regular toothpicks.
Okay.
Regular toothpick. Do you like Swedish fish?
I've had them. Yeah, they're pretty good.
You say that like there's some like foreign food.
I've had Swedish fish. They're red, right?
Yes.
Yes, and I've had them.
But you've had them, like you didn't grow
like
up
them.
eating them.
No,
Like
I
I
ate
grew up
them.
eating them.
On the boardwalk, we get the Swedish fish and the blue sharks.
Oh, you fucking white ass, fucking
Yeah.
boardwalk.
On the boardwalk.
Boardwalk. I don't know about a boardwalk.
Yeah, the blue sharks were good too.
Right. So
The gummy store, whatever the fuck it was called.
So Sweden, right now, 2015. They have a 5% Muslim population that commits about 77% of all rapes.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting statistic.
So very rapey the Muslims are in
They
Sweden.
are rapey. They can't handle white women.
Unfortunately, they're handling them too much, I would say.
That
They
is true.
overhandle
They're
white women.
overhandling white women.
Right. And, this is...
Because 80% of that is, what's it called, Swedish women.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And 80% of that
Yes.
Swedish women. Now, what does that mean? That means you have a minority that has successfully invaded your land
Yeah.
and is literally raping your women.
That's literal.
Vikings would not be okay with this. But that is what's going on in Sweden these days.
Literally.
Another point, and we just went like very briefly on a couple of different sites
Found
to find things that are going on in these countries right now. Another fact, there's a Swedish toy maker that actually publishes gender-neutral children's Christmas catalogs for Swedish people.
What does that even mean?
Like, there are no boy toys, girl toys. Everything is gender-neutral.
What does that mean?
The
Like a
dolls,
flower, like-
the dolls are like Pat dolls.
Okay. I understand.
Not fucking with you. Like
No, from
you're
the,
Patrick.
Yeah, from the SNL skit.
You're white boy Pat.
It's Pat from
Right,
the
it's
SNL
Pat.
skit. Yeah.
So-
That's funny. That's a funny skit.
Right. So, all gender neutral toys, and they actually, there's such a demand for it, there's such a market for it, that they produce an entire catalog for Christmas gifts.
That's crazy.
Right. So, Sweden. Right. So the Swedish men we could actually call Swedish fish.
That's funny.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
This is something that I found, and this was actually, I think, from last year. And I figured I'd include it because it's completely legitimate.
Yeah.
A local Swedish politician wanted to require all men to sit down whenever they use the toilets in any government building. He argued to keep them clean and promote good health.
Sure.
In the daycare centers in Sweden, they also make the young boys sit down. And a phrase that is actually on posters, and we've seen these on daycares. Like,
Yes.
I'm not making this up. It says, "Be a sweetie and take a seedy."
That's what it says.
Swedish fish.
Yeah,
So the
Swedish
Swedish
fish.
guppies.
Yeah.
Swedish guppies turning into the fish.
That's bad.
So that's the Viking country of Sweden.
yes.
So Swedish men, when it comes to me embracing my Viking culture. Get out of my way.
Yeah, you don't have
Get out of my way. You got your own things you got to worry about right now.
You've been demoted.
Stay focused. There's probably a woman right now screaming that you should go run and help. So Norway. Let's go to Norway.
That's fine.
Right, not literally.
Let's not.
Although I do have a friend.
Yeah.
Jeff Miller. What's up, Jeff? I know
What's
you
up?
watched the podcast. Jeff Miller is originally from the U.S.
Okay.
I don't know if he married a Norwegian girl and moved to Oslo, but I may be going there. He had asked me to go and teach a seminar at his academy there, and me, Viking addict, like, yeah, I'd want to go to Norway, and so we're trying to make that happen. But Jeff Miller was he owned a school here,
Okay.
and he was the original coaches of the Miller brothers.
Okay.
Jim and Dan Miller, who were in UFC.
Of course. Yeah.
They originally trained with him.
Oh, that's cool.
Jeff, great guy. What's up, Jeff? But he lives in Norway now.
Norway.
Yeah, so in Oslo.
Oh, one of the things, 9 out of 10 of the rape victims were Swedish women.
Right.
It was a higher percentage.
Okay,
Just
there you go.
wanted to fix that.
I appreciate it. So in Norway, while talk about Muslims are rape again.
Oh, we are?
Horny motherfuckers is Muslims. While 65% of those charged with rape are classed as coming from non-Western background, the segment only makes up about 14% of Norway's population. Norwegian women were the victims in 80% of the cases, with 20% of the women being of a foreign background. So what this is saying is, whereas in Sweden you had 5% of the population, Muslim population, raping 77% of the rapes.
Yeah.
In Norway, it's 14% of the population of these foreigners committing 65% of the rapes.
It's still that's still really bad.
It's completely disproportionate.
Yeah.
And
hide your kids.
It's one of those things, like got to talk about black people for a second.
Okay.
What you often get in discussions of racism and the welfare state, and it's like one of these things when there is a culture, and obviously I'm talking about the black culture in America, and you want to sort of criticize what they're doing, and even if you have the most sincere of intentions of wanting them to empower themselves, you're met with this very, insecure, emotional reaction.
Yeah, always.
And one of the things that you always hear thrown around is, there are more whites on welfare than blacks. And that is completely true. There are more white people on welfare in the United States than there are black people. But what they don't take into account is the disproportionate amount of blacks that are on welfare compared to whites. Right? So I don't have the exact numbers, but let me just set it hypothetical. And I'm saying this is an extreme hypothetical just to illustrate the point.
Okay.
If there are 1,000 white people, right?
Yeah.
And 100 of them are on welfare.
Yes.
10% of the white people are on welfare.
That is correct.
If there are 200 black people and 100 of them are on welfare,
That's, yeah.
same number as white people. 100 people, 100 people.
Yep.
But it's 50% of the black community.
Exactly.
So it's half. So, there's two ways you could look at it. One is weak and defensive. The other one is being realistic and accurate. You could say, the same number of people. Or you could say, half of you guys are on welfare.
That's a big difference.
Those aren't the actual numbers, just illustrating the point.
It's probably more.
So when you talk about, the rapes that are going on in this country, it's really that sort of disproportionate representation of this minority group, acting out these rapes.
A small group are doing all the work.
Right.
And that's not good.
Right. And again, this is a Viking country that is being invaded by foreigners and having its women raped. Anyway. So
no good.
Norway's energy boom, right, which was a major source of industry in Norway for years, it's tailing off years ahead of expectations.
That's not good.
And it's exposing the economy as being unprepared for life after oil, and the long-term viability of what is often considered the world's most generous welfare model is in jeopardy.
Yeah.
They can no longer afford to sustain this welfare model that they've built up that is being sucked dry by foreign invaders.
Whoa.
So these invaders are raping your women, and they're also taking all of your resources, not stealing them because you're giving them to these people.
Yeah.
Right? So they are just taking these resources. And finally, concerning Norway, a study was done, and this is on a Norwegian site. Every fifth woman, right? So 20% of Norwegian women think that Norwegian men are too feminine and soft. So this is one of the very progressive societies in the world nowadays in Norway. And you have the feminism, the, gender neutrality, just nonsense. And it's always, I always find it entertaining that, nature always sort of finds a way to rise to the top.
Yeah.
And here you go now, this 20%, I'm sure, either underreported or quickly growing segment of the women there that is saying, yeah, feminism, we're all equal, yada, yada, yada. But by the way, these men are freaking sissies. They need to toughen up. Right. So you're at the point now, men of Norway, Vikings of Norway, the invaders are there. They're raping your women.
Yes.
They're taking your resources. And even the women that you have left
think you're feminine.
Think you are feminine. So if you are from Norway and you take issue with my Viking clan here in New York, get out of my way. You're not ready.
You're not ready.
So let's move on to Denmark. So Denmark, it's also some not so good illegal sexy time going on in Denmark.
Yeah.
Denmark turns out is a transit and destination country for women and children from the Baltic countries, East and Central Europe, Nigeria, Thailand, and South America that are being subjected to trafficking, specifically sex trafficking, prostitution, forced prostitution.
Yeah, forced prostitution.
So Denmark is a hotspot for women that are kidnapped and sort of thrust into the very illegal world of forced prostitution. Denmark's massive welfare state imposes the highest marginal income tax rates in the world in order to subsidize able-bodied Danes with no intention of taking a job, and consequently, the nation faces massive and growing unemployment.
Yep.
Only 3 of Denmark's 98 municipalities will have a majority of residents working. And these are numbers from late 2013. So only 3 out of the 98 will have at least half of the residents working as of 2013. And that 3 was compared to 59 of the 98.
That's a huge
just
drop off.
4 years earlier than that.
Yeah, that's a pretty huge drop off.
So this is what happens in a welfare state. When you reward weakness, I had that great talk with Lana from Radio 314. And, the topic of the talk we had was, what's wrong with rewarding weakness?
Yeah. Which, if you guys haven't watched that, you'll be getting an email with the link.
Yes.
Tomorrow.
So if you're subscribed to the, we don't know tomorrow because we don't know when this is going to be seen by them.
Oh, yeah.
So, so there you go.
So there you go.
So what you're going to...
In the past, you will have received this email.
This is when we decided to send that email. No, but, when we were talking about why it's bad to reward weakness.
Yeah.
This is why. It's, you're going to, we talk about a society, and this isn't any sort of political science theory of my own. This is just, the practical assessment of what happens time and time again throughout history, whatever a society chooses to incentivize,
Yeah.
is what is going to come to fruition.
Like sitting down to piss.
Right, like sitting down to pee. When you incentivize, not pursuing pressure, not pursuing therefore power, it's no wonder that before long you're relegated to a society of weaklings.
Yeah, and it starts falling apart.
Right, absolutely. So we wanted to talk about. Well, all right, we're not. Oh, and let me just conclude by saying, all you men from Denmark who have an issue with my Viking clan,
Yeah.
just don't bother. You're really not ready.
Yeah, you're not ready
You're
at all.
not ready. Because now, are there strong men in these countries? Of course there are. I'm in contact with many of them. Many of them give us feedback about this podcast. I'm always impressed by all these European countries, how well their English is.
That's good.
How well they speak English. I've spoken to men from all of these countries that I'm profiling, and via email, and they say the same things.
They do.
They're disgusted by what's happening. A big theme, a very common theme in all of these countries in Europe, is the mass immigration of Muslims and how it's affecting what's normal and natural for them. When you think about it, when you have and this again hypothetical is just to illustrate a point. When you have a black guy and a white girl marry, they have a child.
Yeah.
Who's considered black. It's just the way society does it. When you have a mulatto, right, or we jokingly call them gray. When you have a gray child, grows up, marries a white woman, the child's still going to be black. It takes a bit for that child to sort of have an identity rooted in not being black. So by that logic, and I think it's sound logic, I don't think I've sort of stepped on anything controversial so far. It only makes sense. Tiger Woods technically is more white than black. But Black History Month, well, not 100%. Black History Month, Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods.
African-American golfer. Right? So it's already common. It's the narrative that's already established in this country, at least in America, United States rather.
Yeah.
But when you use that logic, it just makes sense that if you have white Europeans that are no longer having children with white Europeans, it's just a matter of time before there are no more white Europeans.
This is facts.
And this is what you'll see is the whole impetus behind the multicultural, nonsense and propaganda. Now, like I said, I mean, am I a self-loathing, mudblood?
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I do think that my parents' customs and traditions are very congruent and compatible. But if you're somebody who is of a what I would say an incompatible background between your parents, I only speak from positions of power. It is what it is. You start with you then.
Yeah.
And you basically get to choose, what the chain's going to be. You could listen to our legacy episode where I break that whole process down. We discuss at great length, what to do, when you are the link one. Fatherless Bastards.
Bastards.
That episode was
both of those are really good.
Yeah, we dissected it, to the finest detail. But it only makes sense that if you have, and my whole point is, the reason I'm talking about this is, I see the hypocrisy concerning, people who are proud of being white.
Yeah.
And when they say so, the sort of backlash they get for saying so. And it's so hypocritical. It's so weak. We're basically brainwashed, indoctrinated, in the school system in this country to support the notion of a victimized, black community, and how, we need to help them. We need to help them. We need to help them because they're in such a bad situation because of everything we've done to them. And these are the things we hear early on. And, I don't think I think the same mindset that I have of, you're not going to tell me what customs and traditions I'm going to follow and take as my own, is the same mindset that's going to get so many of these people's heads out of their asses, to stop volunteering for victimhood.
Correct. 100%.
So I wanted to talk about some of these, what I would say, valuable Viking customs and traditions, and talk about, well, why? Why is it that I want to follow these traditions? Why is it that I see such value, in the way that they tend to do things, in their communities? And we have a list here.
Correct.
So some of these customs and traditions are, let's start with number one, Viking women enjoyed some basic rights as Viking women.
That's good.
They were allowed to inherit land. They were able to not only be married, but also divorced. There were reasons where the sort of the elders, or I believe they were called the thing, which is this meeting of all the men of the community, the heads of households of the families and such. They were awarded divorces under certain circumstances. They were given basically dominion over the home, the homestead. The saying was that the doorway of a home sort of separated the world of men and the world of women.
That's a good one.
Outside was him, inside was her.
That's interesting.
And it was something that, it was a formula that they worked with a lot of success. Another thing, Vikings believed in leader-led tribes.
That makes sense.
Small groups of men. There wasn't one group called Vikings. They didn't call themselves Vikings.
That's true. They didn't.
They had these small communities.
Yeah.
These like chiefdoms almost.
Yep.
Where they did have something of a caste system. Slavery, hey, it was the sign of the times.
That's correct.
Contrary to what many people think, slavery didn't just occur in the South of America.
It did not.
Right. So they certainly had their slaves, their thralls, they would call them, but for the most part, they believed in these small tribes of like-minded individuals who worked together in a sort of synergy to sort of leverage their efforts to raid, yes, but also to farm, to hunt, to sort of find success as a community.
Correct.
They work together. Another thing that I really connect with the Viking culture is they embrace their mythology and traditions. Now, they didn't see it as mythology.
No, they did not.
That was their religion.
Correct.
When you look at the Norse gods, my family mostly is Christian, and I've never connected with Christianity on any level, even from a secular position, connecting, as far as, enjoying the customs and traditions, because so much of Christianity is weak, is weakness. It's sort of basically offering yourself to things that aren't in your power, and it doesn't promote self-reliance or strength, overcoming adversity.
No.
Well, the Norse gods completely different. The Norse gods are set and anchored in power. They are gods who favorably look upon those who help themselves, those who sort of embrace the notion of honor and courage, bravery.
Yeah.
The Einherjar on the battlefield being chosen by the Valkyries to be sort of, slain on a battlefield, being brought, to Valhalla to party with Odin, like all of these things, in their mythology, made up or reinforced a culture that was very masculine, and very much built on strength.
Yeah. The idea that you would die in battle and that was the ultimate reward. you know, that really tied the whole culture together.
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, another thing, you know, Vikings embraced family and traditional roles for men and women.
That's correct.
You know, one of the things, you know, we just spoke about was, you know, the threshold of the home,
Yeah.
you know, sort of separating the worlds of men and women. Well, Vikings understood that, you know, women belonged with the children. And,
Makes sense.
you know, and that wasn't you know, a sentencing. You know, they weren't condemned to a life, you know, with the children.
Yeah, no.
It's like, no, they were the ones who were best equipped for handling that function.
Yeah,
right?
and
that role.
That makes sense considering the baby came out of their body.
It's true.
It would make sense that would be their primary role.
It is true.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's one they embraced. Viking women, they were strong women. You know, the whole notion of the shield maiden was probably, you know, at this point a little over dramatized, a little overplayed.
A little bit.
There weren't a lot of women running around with swords and shields fighting with men. You know, at least not, you know, by the way of the writings that I've been
and if they
exposed
did,
to.
it wasn't for very long.
Right. You know, but, you know, they were strong. They had a relationship with death. They understood that we weren't going to live forever. Obviously, they had a whole backstory to where you actually went. But be that as it may, it's still, you know, a group that embraced the violent nature of reality and the inevitability of moving on.
Yeah.
You know, at least in their context. And the last thing, you know, about Vikings, certainly not the last thing that I love about them, but the last thing on the list, the Vikings valued honor and brotherhood.
Yes.
With the Vikings, there was a lot of fighting between these different communities.
Yeah, they fought each other.
You know, because of honor, because of, you know, insults and preserving one's name, the value of one's name, and, you know, and with that, you see a respect, an inherent respect in a society that's really very much supportive of, you know, of the things that make us stronger. You know, so if we're a group of men who knows that we may have to defend, you know, our resources, defend our women, we're going to act a certain way. We're going to conduct ourselves a certain way.
Yeah,
you know, we're going to sort of gravitate towards a certain lifestyle, you know, and certain practices that are, you know, congruent with that.
Of course, or else they come and they take our women.
Right.
We all die.
So, you know, going over these Viking countries, they're not very Viking.
Not nowadays. At all. Not even close.
I would certainly implore them to re-embrace, you know, who their ancestors were, embrace, you know, who basically survived long enough that they're here.
Correct.
You know? So many strong people. Anybody who is alive these days has strong people who have come before them, who are the sole reason for them even being alive.
That's correct.
And that's one of the things that I would say that, you know, the people from these Viking countries, like you guys need to get back in touch with that.
Yeah.
If you need any help, you can come visit the Bronx, and I will help you on how to become more Viking-like in your demeanor, your customs, your mindset.
Yeah, stop on by.
All right. So we're going to move on to the mantelpiece.
Awesome.
And another sort of super valuable aspect of my affinity for the Viking culture are the stories and sort of reference materials that I have for my sons.
Yes.
Right. Soon to be daughter.
Yeah.
Having the stories that are made for children, but are following and congruent with the strength of the Viking culture allows me to get them away from all of that weak, indoctrinating libpro nonsense that's being force-fed to our children nowadays.
Yes.
So one of the books, and I literally, have a whole bunch of these books. This is one that I wanted to share. I had to pick one. It's Norse Hero Tales. It's by a writer named Isabel Wyatt. And it's just a collection of stories. And these stories give readers some insight into what life was like as a Viking from a child's perspective.
Pretty cool.
You know, the reading age for these is like 9 to 11, but that's a government schooled age. So
yeah, a little different.
Our homeschool kids can eat this up with no problem.
No problem at all.
And whether it's this book or something else, if you are a parent and you do want to, and you don't have to be a fan of the Viking culture or a pagan or a heathen or anything of the sort, but if you're somebody who wants your children to understand the power of strength, I would say that that buying this book and books like this is certainly a move in the right direction.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we'll put a link.
Awesome.
All right. So Pressure Player and Unicorn.
Yes.
All right. So the Pressure Player is it's two guys.
Yep.
Who back in the 70s made a move to help everybody become sort of more informed about and sort of closer to the Viking tradition. And it's John Yoel and John Gibbs Bailey of the Odinic Rite. And they're the creators of the 9 Noble Virtues.
That is correct.
Right. So according to them, what they basically did was, being students of the Viking age, the Viking culture and traditions and history, they distilled all of those virtues that were put, on a pedestal in that era, and came up with those 9.
Yeah.
And anybody who, a lot of people don't realize that those 9 Noble Virtues were made, in the 1970s.
Yeah, which we covered that.
We covered that
in our episode.
In the episode, but
still awesome.
And valid. Valid and accurate. So if you have these two experts, and these are Odinists, these are people who still worship, the Norse gods. And anybody that would mock or berate or chastise them for that, you better not be a religion, don't start arguing stories with me.
No.
Because although I am certainly an atheist, I like their story a hell of a lot better than the other ones that are out there.
100%.
So they're the Pressure Player for this episode, and I found it to be fitting.
I agree 100%.
Right,
Great Pressure Player.
So unicorns.
Yes.
Gotta take some water before I go in on these people.
Okay. This is the water break before destruction.
You're my hype man. I'm
hyping him up. He's coming for you. He's coming for you.
I gotta throw some at the camera. Yeah. Destruction.
You're going to annihilate
racist internet idiots.
Okay.
So
the term internet in there actually changes some things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So racist internet idiots, as it is applied to this episode, is those group of people who sit behind their keyboards, and they want to do nothing but espouse the value of races staying away from each other and cultures belonging to one race over another. Basically going against everything that I brought up this episode so far.
Yeah.
These are the Norse who are, sitting down in bathrooms, or that was the Swedes. So, they're probably all doing it this point.
They probably are all doing it.
But these are those people who, want to champion, white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed people should only have children with white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed people. Now, I'm not in a disagreement with that, on its surface at least. I understand the value of preserving, a race and ethnicity, a certain amount of traits, physical traits. Because once they're gone, they're gone.
They are.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I don't inherently have a problem with that. My issue is when they follow that up with this sense of superiority and
correct.
And how, because I'm from one of these Scandinavian countries, I am superior to you. And, well, we've gone over in pretty good detail why that's certainly not the case in a general sense.
Of course.
As an individual, I don't know. I'm mixed, Puerto Rican, Irish, Italian.
Yeah.
You're Irish.
I'm Irish, Scottish,
and
probably a little German, so all that shit.
And we're pretty smart.
Yeah, we do all right.
We took IQ tests. We're not telling you our scores.
No.
But we're pretty smart.
Do all right.
We're
Yeah.
above average.
Yeah, sure.
I can tie my shoes. My eyes closed.
Yeah.
So there's a certain point where the superiority thing needs to be left out of the conversation because it does two things. Number one, it's inaccurate.
It is.
If you want to talk about the intelligent levels of ethnicities and races, well, that's a different conversation. It's one that we'll probably have on an episode eventually.
Yeah, 100%.
I really would like to bring another person in to sort of speak as an authority on that topic. I don't want to be the guy sitting here going through all that shit. I'd much rather interview an expert.
Yeah.
But sure, there's it's been proven that there are intelligence differences between different races. But to me, that doesn't necessarily give one the right to claim he is superior. On that same, list of intelligences, East Asians are considered to be superior.
They are.
The highest intelligence. And I mean, last time I checked during the war, we kicked their ass.
Yeah.
Find your way out of this one. Here's a puzzle you can't get out.
Yeah.
But
we went big.
But joking aside,
Yeah.
and a level of intelligence, certainly matters. It certainly means something. But to sort of enjoy the broad stamp of superiority because of an average intelligence level, on a race-wide, assessment. Understand, I don't respect, that. That means nothing to me. I know what I'm capable of. I know, where, what my strength and power is, what I'm about. So I really don't have a lot of patience for these internet racicists.
Yeah.
There's so many things that I agree with. So many people who are called racist, I think, inaccurately.
Yeah, that's correct.
But there still are those that they hear the last name Garcia, or they'll see a picture of my pops.
Yeah,
and there's the story. To them, the story's over right there.
Yep, that's it.
And
you are this now.
Right. And, for me, do what you want to do, any way you want it. It doesn't matter to me. We could have a discussion about it. You want to show up and do something about it,
we could do that too.
All challenges accepted.
Yeah.
It's really just, it's a youth thing, and it gets in the way more than anything. It does. It just gets in the way. If you're the guy that doesn't want to be around anybody of any ethnicity other than your own, well, then I don't want you around either. You know? But then we're in agreement.
Yeah, we're 100%.
It's something we agree on. So why should there be controversy?
You want your piece over here, we'll be over here. You stay over there, no big deal.
And there's no conflict.
No, it's fine.
But it's really the aggressive, I need to feel I'm up there because I want to make you feel like you're down there.
Yes.
And that's just not going to fly.
No, not at all.
It's not going to fly. So the racist internet idiots, step it up. Offer me some information.
Yeah.
Or just shut up.
Yeah.
Just shut up. Just go away. Shut up and go away.
Who you writing for?
Right. Like, I don't understand. There is no sort of aspect of reality that I'm going to concede you're superior in. It's very much an individual thing for me.
Yeah.
But but I digress.
Correct.
So
racist internet idiots.
Racist internet idiots, unicorns. All right, Pat.
Yeah.
Pure blood nonsense.
Pure blood nonsense.
Culture, tribe, and the quest for power. Covered a lot of bases. Break it down.
Cool. So speaking with the Viking culture and the popularity of that, and the fact that a lot of strong people gravitate towards the concepts and philosophies of the Viking culture. Strength is strength, power is power. Whether or not you were born into it or have the Nordic blood is irrelevant. If you find power in powerful things, you find strength in strong things, so be it. Embrace that, use it, and grow stronger and powerful yourself.
Well said. The problem with a foreigner entering a land is not in the differences of their genes. It's not in the differences of their identity. It's in the differences in their cultures and traditions. Using the Muslims as examples, they don't go to these countries, these Scandinavian countries, and look to sort of embrace the Scandinavian culture. They don't look to, make the stories their own of eras past. No, they look to go there, infiltrate, and conquer. And I got news for you. That's what strong people do. Call them what you want, whether it's by strength or through the manipulation of the weak welfare state policies of these countries. They're going there and they're taking over. And you guys are letting them. I am a firm believer that so long as an outsider respects and is congruent in their identity with the ritual procreation and survival of a group, they could very much be assimilated into that group. It needn't be this sort of all or nothing. If you don't look like me, if our parents didn't, play with the same goats, there's no way that we could be family.
Yeah.
And maybe it's, me being an interracial child. Maybe it's me being raised in New York City. But whatever the case is, there are people who are interested in strength and power, and I'm interested in them. Thank you, folks, for listening to this episode of The Pressure Project. It's been a pleasure talking about this. There are certainly some other topics that we'll cover in the future.
Yeah.
Some of them, hopefully, I'll be able to get a scapegoat to basically sit there and have everyone curse him at the end of it.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about. So do you guys.
Yes.
But besides that, we're always going to remain loyal to strength, power, and the reclamation of masculinity.
Yeah, 100%.
We look forward to speaking to you guys in the next episode. As a reminder, thepressureproject.com is our website. info@thepressureproject.com is our contact email. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, guys. Also, sign up for the newsletter on the site. We will be sending you guys some stuff via the newsletter. And if you're not on it, you're not going to get it. Again, we thank you for the time. And as always, brothers, pressure to power.